Last week, a major economic research firm published a report that every person over the age of 60 who owns a home in America needs to hear about. And I can almost guarantee that unless you watch financial news very closely, nobody has told you about it yet. The firm is Oxford Economics. They are one of the most respected economic forecasting organizations in the world. Governments, central banks, and major financial institutions pay them to tell the truth about where the economy is going, even when that truth is uncomfortable. And what they just published about the American housing market is deeply uncomfortable. Their conclusion, after analyzing home prices, mortgage rates, household incomes, insurance costs, property taxes, and HOA fees, is this: the housing market in America will not return to normal affordability for at least 7 years. And in the most likely scenario, based on how things are actually trending right now, it may not return to affordability for an entire decade. Now, most of the news coverage of this report has focused on young people, first-time buyers, millennials who cannot afford to buy a starter home, and I understand why. That is a real problem and it deserves attention. But here is what nobody in the financial media is talking about. This report is not just bad news for people trying to get into the housing market. It is potentially devastating news for people who are already in it. Specifically, retirees and people within 10 years of retirement who have built their financial security around the assumption that their home would work in a predictable, rational way. Today, I am going to show you exactly how this report changes the math for your retirement, what it means for every major decision you are facing about your home right now, and the specific moves you need to make to protect yourself. Oxford Economics measures housing affordability through what they call a housing affordability index. The way it works is simple. When the index hits 100, that is the point at which a family earning the median American household income can comfortably afford the median-priced American home. Right now, in the first quarter of 2026, that index sits at 77.9. That means typical American families are operating at roughly 22 points below what most economists consider the threshold of affordability. Oxford modeled 3 different futures for their index. In the best-case scenario, home prices stay completely flat and mortgage rates drop by about 0.5%. The index does not recover to 100 until 2033. That is 7 years from right now. In their middle scenario, prices stay flat but rates do not drop. The index does not recover until 2036, a full 10 years. And in the scenario Oxford considers most realistic, where prices and rates continue along historical trends, the index stays below 80 for the entire next decade. It does not get better, it gets marginally worse. One of the most important things about the Oxford report is what they include in their calculation that most other housing indexes leave out. They include property taxes. They include homeowners insurance. They include HOA fees. These are the real costs of owning a home in America today, not just the mortgage payment. Here is how significant that is. When Oxford's lead economist removed homeowners insurance from the calculation entirely, the national index jumped from 77.9 all the way to 83.5. Insurance costs alone are dragging American housing affordability down by nearly 6 index points. I want to tell you about a couple I will call Beverly and Tom. They are in their late 60s. They live in a 4-bedroom home in Florida that they bought in 2004 for $212,000. That home is now worth approximately $580,000. On paper, they look like housing market winners. They have nearly $400,000 in home equity. That is a tremendous amount of wealth. But here is what is actually happening in their lives right now. Their homeowner's insurance in 2022 cost them $2,800 a year. After 2 carrier exits and a forced move to a higher-cost insurer, their current premium is $9,100 annually. Their property taxes have increased by $2,300 a year since their county reassessment in 2024. Their combined carrying costs for a home they own outright have increased by nearly $9,000 per year in under 4 years. Beverly and Tom have been talking about downsizing for 3 years, moving to a smaller home, maybe a 50-55 age-restricted community. Lower maintenance, less lawn, closer to their grandchildren. But here is the problem they ran into that nobody warned them about. When Beverly and Tom sat down and actually ran the numbers on selling their home, they discovered something that stopped them cold. Because they bought their home in 2004 for $212,000 and it is now worth $580,000. They have a capital gain of approximately $368,000. A married couple can exclude $500,000 of capital gains on a primary home sale. That rule sounds protective, but it has not been updated since 1997, when the median home price in America was $145,000. After their $500,000 exclusion, Beverly and Tom still face a taxable capital gain. Then factor in Florida's real estate transfer costs, the cost of purchasing a new, smaller home at current mortgage rates, even if they are paying mostly cash, the moving costs, and the price of a 55-plus community unit in their area, which has risen 40% in 3 years due to demand from the silver tsunami of retiring baby boomers, and they found themselves essentially financially stuck. The home that was supposed to fund the comfortable final chapter of their retirement has become a financial cage. Beverly and Tom are not an edge case. The Urban Institute has documented that 11.7 million senior households in America today are what economists classify as severely cost-burdened, meaning they spend more than 50% of their income on housing costs. A national survey conducted in early 2026 found that 73% of homeowners said they would consider moving if they could transfer their current mortgage rate to a new property. But they cannot. Rates are not portable, and because 30-year fixed mortgage rates are currently hovering between 6.5% and 7%, giving up a pandemic-era rate of 3% to move into a smaller, supposedly more affordable home means the monthly payment on the new property may actually be higher than what they are paying today, even on a less expensive house. Here is the mathematics of the trap in plain numbers. If you bought your current home 10 years ago and have a mortgage balance of $400,000 at a 3% interest rate, your principal and interest payment is roughly $1,686 a month. If you sell that home and attempt to downsize into a property valued at $280,000 today, taking on a new mortgage at 6.5%, your new monthly payment is approximately $1,770 a month. You moved to a smaller, less expensive home, and your monthly housing payment went up. That is not a hypothetical. That is the current mathematical reality for millions of American homeowners in their 60s and 70s who are trying to right-size their housing for retirement. And then there is the capital gain situation. The current federal tax exclusion of $250,000 for a single person and $500,000 for a married couple has not been adjusted since 1997. When Congress set those numbers, the median American home price was $145,000. Today, the national median is over $420,000, and in coastal markets and major metros, it is dramatically higher. Moody's Analytic, led by their chief economist Mark Zandi, published an analysis that identified this specific tax structure as one of the primary mechanisms keeping millions of homes off the market. Seniors who have built substantial equity cannot afford the tax bill to sell, so they stay. The homes that should be cycling back into the market for younger families never appear, and everyone in the housing ecosystem suffers the consequences. Now, I want to address the question I know is in your mind right now. Are rates going to come down? And if so, when? Because if rates drop back to 4 or 5%, a lot of what I just described becomes less severe. Here is what the data actually shows as of today. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is currently sitting at approximately 6.5%. That is the number as of this week, not the number that was true 2 years ago. Not a prediction for next year today. Every major forecasting organization, LendingTree, Zillow, Norada, the National Association of Realtors, is currently projecting that 30-year fixed mortgage rates will stay between 6 and 7% through the end of 2027, not below 5, not approaching 4, 6 to 7 for at least the next 18 months. Redfin's analysis is even more sobering. Their economists project that the housing market will not feel financially normal again for most American households until late 2030, 4 years from now. Here is what that means in practical terms. If you are waiting for rates to come down before making a major decision about your home, whether that is selling, downsizing, drawing equity, or making improvements to stay in place long-term, you are waiting for something that the data says will not arrive in a meaningful way for several years at minimum. And here is the part that concerns me most as a wealth advisor. The people who wait the longest are frequently not rewarded for their patience in this type of environment. They simply delay their decisions until life makes the decisions for them, usually in a more stressful and less financially optimal way. And prices are not going to bail you out either. Oxford Economics confirms the United States is currently short over 2 million housing units. Existing home turnover, meaning the rate at which current homeowners sell and put their homes back on the market, is running at just 4.7% over the past year. That is the same level we saw during the depths of the global financial crisis between 2009 and 2012. Low turnover means low inventory. Low inventory means prices stay elevated even when buyer demand softens, which means the pressure on every side of this equation continues to compound. There is a separate dimension of this crisis that is specific to seniors, and it is not getting nearly enough attention. Even among retirees who have done their financial planning correctly, who have enough equity to absorb the capital gains, who are not trapped by their mortgage rate, and who genuinely want to move into a smaller, more suitable home, there is an inventory problem on the receiving end that is just as severe as the problem they face trying to sell. The oldest baby boomers turned 80 this year, 2026. Demand for senior and active adult housing communities is at historic highs, and the construction of new units to meet that demand has slowed to an annual inventory growth rate of just 0.7%, the lowest on record. The senior living industry's own analysts have stated publicly that the sector would need to build new communities at twice its maximum historical pace every single year for the next 20 years just to maintain 90% occupancy given current demographic demand. When supply is this tight and demographic demand is this strong, asking rents at senior living communities follow basic economics. They go up. Independent living and assisted living, asking rents rose more than 4% year over year in 2025 and are maintaining that pace through 2026. So a retiree today faces a situation where the home they want to sell is harder to exit than expected. The smaller home they want to buy is not actually cheaper given current rates, and the senior community they might want to transition into is more expensive than it was 12 months ago and may not even have an available unit. This is not a single problem. It is a convergence of three separate pressures all arriving at the same moment in time. Move number 1. Get a real documented number on your current equity position and what you would actually walk away with if you sold today, not what Zillow estimates, not what your neighbor sold for in 2023. A formal comparative market analysis from a licensed real estate professional combined with a capital gains calculation from your accountant. In my experience, most seniors overestimate their after-tax, after-cost net equity by 20 to 35%. They see the headline home value and assume that number translates into free cash in their pocket. It does not. Once you subtract your remaining mortgage balance, the federal capital gains tax on anything above your exclusion, state transfer taxes, agent commissions, closing costs, and the cost of your next move, the real number can be significantly lower than what you expect. Knowing your real number is not pessimistic. It is the foundation of every other decision you make about your housing situation. Move number 2. Before you make any decision to downsize, have an advisor model your complete monthly housing cost in your target property at today's interest rates, not rates from 2 years ago. Today's rates include the property taxes on the new property, the insurance cost, the HOA fees if applicable, and a reasonable monthly maintenance allocation. As I showed you earlier, the mathematics of downsizing at 6.5% can produce a monthly payment on a smaller home that is actually higher than your current payment. You need to see that number before you commit to a decision that has enormous transaction costs and is very difficult to reverse. Move number 3. If you have substantial equity in your home and have not yet fully retired, evaluate opening a home equity line of credit now, while your income documentation still qualifies you for the largest possible credit line. A HELOC gives you a flexible, revolving line of credit secured by your home equity. You are not required to draw on it. But having it established means that if an unexpected expense arrives, a medical event, a major repair, a family emergency, you have access to your own equity at a far lower cost than a personal loan or credit card. The critical thing most people do not understand, HELOC approval is income-based. If you are still working, even part-time, you will qualify for a substantially larger credit line than you will after full retirement when your only income is Social Security and a fixed pension. Opening it before you retire costs you nothing if you never use it, and it can be a critical safety valve if you do. Move number 4. Set up a rate alert with your lender or mortgage broker today so you are immediately notified when 30-year fixed rates move below 6%. Experts at LendingTree and elsewhere are projecting that rates may briefly dip below the 6% threshold at some point in 2026 before settling back into the mid-6 range. That brief window, even if it only lasts for a few weeks, represents a materially better moment to refinance if you have a higher rate loan, to lock in a HELOC at better terms, or to time a home purchase for a downsize. People who are watching for that window and are financially prepared to move quickly will have an advantage over those who were not paying attention. Move number 5. If the analysis tells you that staying in your home is the financially superior option, which for many seniors it genuinely is, begin investing in aging-in-place modifications now, rather than waiting until a health event forces an emergency renovation. First-floor bedroom and bathroom conversions, grab bars, accessible shower installations, ramp access, and wider doorways are significantly cheaper to install proactively than reactively. Labor costs for tradespeople like plumbers and carpenters are rising at 6 to 8% annually in 2026. A bathroom accessibility renovation that costs $8,000 today may cost $12,000 in 2 years. And making these modifications now, before you urgently need them, also protects and in some markets enhances your resale value when you do eventually choose to move. I want to be straight with you about something before we finish today. The Oxford Economics report I started this video with is not designed to make you feel hopeless, and this video is not either. The point is not that everything is broken and nothing can be done. The point is that the rules of how a home functions as a retirement asset have changed significantly in the past 4 years. And most of the conventional wisdom that retirees are relying on to make major housing decisions was formed in a world that no longer exists. The idea that you can always downsize easily and pocket a clean profit. The idea that lower rates are just around the corner. The idea that the senior community you want will have a spot available when you want it. These assumptions need to be tested against current data before you build a retirement plan around them. What has not changed is this. A home managed wisely, with current information, is still one of the most powerful assets you have in retirement. The equity it represents is real. The stability it provides is real. The options it creates, if you understand them and act before circumstances force your hand, are real. The difference between the seniors who navigate this environment well and the ones who get caught off guard is almost always the same thing. The ones who do well got accurate information early enough to make thoughtful decisions. The ones who struggled found out too late. You now have the information. What you do with it is up to you. If this video helped you think about your situation differently, please share it with someone you care about who owns a home in retirement. Most people are not having this conversation until they are already in the middle of a decision they cannot easily undo. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you have a question about your specific situation, leave it in the comments and I will do my best to address it. Thank you for watching. Protect your equity, understand your options, and I will see you in the next video.